one on social activism. The righteous voice which has crossed barriers of gender bias. Ma'am, I would like to quote, when I was a teenager, I started to raise voice against many of the issues, and then I was told, Vrinda cover banna hai kya? And I had a grin on my face, here to a smile. I would like, please come and please say a few words.
Thank you. I'm going to speak in English because I think I want Comrade to hear me, and I also think that the rest of India, fortunately, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, वगैरह से सिर्फ भारतीय नहीं बनेंगे, इसलिए we can speak in English today. I didn't know this publication was taking place, and that you have been doing similar publications earlier. For me, it's a pleasure to see this because I think it also sets a benchmark for all parliamentarians. And for us as citizens to know that what did the representative do in Parliament? This mic is a little bit like Indian democracy, you have to keep putting it back in place. With each speaker it takes a tone of its own. It would be interesting actually to bring out, maybe not a proper publication, but otherwise some kind of a paperback, also of those who you may need to put only 2-3 pages, if at all they ventured to speak anything. It would be a very good record for the public to see that when you got that position in Parliament, what did you do with it? As has been said by many and many who've known Comrade Raja for very long, I am though very curious to know by the end of this evening, Comrade Raja, if you ever addressed Vijay Mallya as Comrade, and the current Prime Minister, how would you address him? I think if one sees the span of issues that Comrade Raja has spoken about, and Jairam Ramesh has actually given the secret away, that since he was representing the party, he would get an occasion. But the point is that he rose to each occasion and actually spoke at length and deliberated. I read a part of the speeches that were of interest to me, particularly around issues of national security, justice, communalism. And I think his words are so present. He's actually talking about in 2008 of the National Investigating Agency. He's alerting Parliament to right-wing terror and saying there is no conversation, no attention being paid to it. He's talking about the Armed Forces Special Powers Act needing a review, pellet guns to be prohibited, creating political processes for conversation on Kashmir, and of course, as he himself says, with a missionary zeal on the issue of death penalty. It's a very, very wide range, but I think what is the insight there is about how he's actually, it's both about those times and he's foretelling the dangers that are lurking around Indian democracy, which he alerts us to. And I think that is really the value of what he has presented in Parliament, and why some of those issues could not become issues of serious concern and be taken forward. And I think we've seen the result of all that. I'm going to keep my intervention very brief, except to say that I couldn't endorse more what Bhasha is saying. With Comrade Raja no longer in Parliament, it's really like losing one's own voice in Parliament. Because if there was one person we all had access to, uninhibited access, at any time on any issue. And it was not that he was going to do us a favor by thinking about it, speaking about it, raising it. It was why he was in politics, was about raising all the issues that mattered to all of us. And I think it's very rare that one gets that kind of access to people in Parliament. Many members sitting here I would exclude. I have harassed Jairam Ramesh on many occasions, so I will place that on record, and have always been welcomed in his office and always been welcomed with any suggestions. So it's not to say that others have not. In fact, I have a copy of the Constitution which was gifted to me. I kind of tricked Jairam into gifting it to me, if I were to be honest. From him. Okay, so then he's probably giving it to friends. I didn't feel bad about it. So, but I do think there is a loss of voice for all of us in Parliament increasingly, not just because the numbers, there is a particular, the BJP's coalition is gaining more and more numbers, but I think people like Comrade Raja not being present and not being there in enough numbers for all of us to have access on a range of issues, and the complete clarity. I think there's a lot of, anybody who reads these speeches, there is no, he can say the most complex of things in a very direct way. And I always believe that that happens when there is clarity in your politics and your thought. So there is no confusion, you don't have to play with words to articulate anything. And there is a seamlessness to the politics, whether he's talking about issues of death penalty, UAPA, there is a whole chapter. When I was reading on NIA and UAPA, you're really reminded of what is happening in the Bhima Koregaon conspiracy and other similar cases, the Malegaon case, when NIA intervenes, what terms in those cases. All of those really, it's like etching those times down to women's rights, education, nuclear deal as you mentioned. I think it's a fascinating engagement with society which is reflected in politics. I think we are, the engagements will continue. Comrade Raja never saw a difference in, as has been mentioned before, in speaking in Parliament or speaking at Jantar Mantar or speaking at any other meeting. For him, those were all fora, and so our engagement and our struggles, our joint struggles will continue. And the only thing I would say about North and South India is that the South Indians do wake up early, and so when you get an early morning call and that person says, "Comrade," you know that can only be Comrade Raja and nobody else in the world who would do that to me. So we will continue to have those conversations and continue our struggles, and like Jairam very rightly pointed out, Comrade Raja's way of conducting politics and way of conducting life is in a large measure due to my friend Annie Raja being his partner in all this. And of course, if you go to his house, you know his love for books, because in one room you can't step in because there is no place, because there are papers and books everywhere. So we'll continue our conversations, but thank you very much for this.